Welcome to Trust Talks and Digital Dives, where we delve into the world of trust in the digital age. Trust Talks and Digital Dives is produced by DIACC, a nonprofit organization that fosters secure and privacy-enhancing access to digital services in Canada and globally. Whether you're navigating the complexities of data privacy, pondering the impact of AI on trust, or curious about how technology shapes our relationships, you're in the right place. I'm Joni Brennan, president of the DIACC, and I'll be your host. This episode discusses the foundations of the financial regulatory system and the financial industry capabilities to detect human trafficking. You'll hear a conversation between myself and Karan Puri, Associate Vice President with TD's External Ecosystem Group, where he's focused on credentials and innovation that solves for client identification. He's especially passionate about the needs related to onboarding of new-to-bank customers. Let's dive in to digital trust with Karan. Thanks so much for joining us, Karan. Could you please introduce yourself to the audience and tell them why fighting human trafficking is so important for your work?
Thanks, Joni. Happy to be here. I'm an Associate Vice President with TD's External Ecosystem Group and focused on digital credentials topic. We are an innovation group focused on solving for client identification, especially to onboard new-to-bank customers. And in doing so, it's important from an ecosystem stakeholder perspective that we contribute in identifying genuine customers, fraudsters, and criminals.
Canada benefits from a collaborative and inclusive financial ecosystem. How does TD leverage digital trust and credentials to help fight fraud?
TD takes fraud and fraud prevention very seriously and has enabled a number of fraud prevention tools to protect our customers. I'll sort of bucket these three areas to help understand that. So we invest in tools to protect identity from fraud. There's the two-step verification. There's the biometric identity, TD fraud alerts, auto deposit, which sort of helps you sort of notify when your the account is deposited with the money from Interact transfer. And then there is TD voice print for customers who call in on the phone channel. The second sort of approach we take is we generate awareness. Through awareness and good online habits, you can significantly reduce your risk of fraud and identity theft. Our communication channels are always updated with content about emerging frauds and malicious activities and best practices related to passwords and logins, social media, online purchases, viruses, malware, and ransomware. And then finally, we work alongside in our ecosystem to improve fraud prevention at a broader level, which would be engaging in maturing the digital credentials ecosystem within TD and broadly within Canada. This heightens the validation of customers' identity and enables a more frictionless experience when using TD login credentials for ancillary services such as logging into CRA.
It's inspiring to hear about the education and communications work you're doing to support clients. Client and customer education is a potent tool to help fight fraud together. And Canada is also known for being what we call a highly banked society. This means that most people in Canada have bank accounts and are included in the financial ecosystem. What does TD do to help support financial inclusion in our ecosystem?
Absolutely. Our focus is to help support and raise financial literacy, specifically for underserved or marginalized communities. We do this through financial literacy programs. You have Money Matters, which focuses on new immigrants, single parents, low-income families, and others. You have Prosper Canada, which is focused on low-middle income. You have Wallet Wellness, which is focused on grade 4 to grade 8 students in Ontario. Then you have TD Student Scholarships. And then you have TD Bank Wow Zone, which is an interactive program that has taught over 1 million kids about budgeting, saving, and the importance of building good financial habits early in life. So you can read about all these programs on the TD Public site. Other than that, you have the financial tools. As for example, you have the Financial Relief Navigator. So during COVID, this tool was helpful for Canadians to understand the financial benefits and relief options available. And this was in connection with one of the programs that I mentioned earlier, Prosper Canada. And furthermore, specifically focused on the new to Canada customers, there are programs that are focused especially to help them settle in Canada by providing financial literacy classes and workshops through local branches, connecting immigrants with personal financial advisors, financial education on any type of products, and then to a certain extent, provide tailored products and services for that segment.
I would encourage listeners to follow up on the tools you've cited. And I can say that as we were going through COVID, the exposure I had to the teams at TD showed that you are working hard to address the urgent needs of your clients and partners. Now, let's talk specifically about the role of client identification and how client identification helps to safeguard the financial ecosystem.
Customer identification, I think, is the single most critical aspect, whether it's to onboard a new to bank customer or serving a customer with a high value transaction, or it could be to avail services and products within the TD umbrella. Now, banks ensure that clients are genuinely who they claim to be, and ensuring that they meet KYC requirements. Now, in doing so, there is emphasis and oftentimes stringent identification processes that are introduced, which in turn increase the friction points for criminals to use the ecosystem for money movement. Now, it's complex because as you make the process more stringent, this could also penalize genuine customers to getting onboarded, right? So to get the right balance, it's often as the context changes, as the world changes, for banks to get the right balance, at least at TD Bank, they're heavily investing in technology and innovation to balance the competing interest of tracking criminal actors in the ecosystem while reducing the friction for genuine customers.
It's certainly a complex ecosystem, and I appreciate how you highlighted the need to balance tools to identify clients appropriately while making sure that authentic clients aren't locked out from the rightful access to their data. Now, let's focus on how the financial ecosystem and regulatory framework can help fight human trafficking. TD has made a commitment to human rights and compliance with local and international regulatory schemes, especially given your global organizational footprint. How can TD's capabilities help the global and local fights against human trafficking?
Banks act as a gatekeeper of the financial system by preventing and detecting money movement of criminal proceeds. Now, at TD, how we do it is through strong policies, including our code of conduct and whistleblowing hotline to ensure staff, vendor, and customers are all held to the same standards. Critical investments in technology. TD is always investing in strong customer identification and authentication processes, including technology and the evolution of digital tools, supporting the enhancement of the traditional KYC processes. We are also constantly evolving our toolkit to prevent financial crimes such as cross-border illicit flows. And then finally, also working across our ecosystem, including with the government, ensuring that we detect criminal activities in the financial industry. And that takes a partnership across banks, fintechs, and government bodies.
I love that you discussed people, process, and tools and using governance in those processes to amplify the priority of the human element. How does TD's client identification capability make inclusion more secure for newcomers while also detecting information that might indicate human trafficking or some kind of fraud?
Yeah, sure. TD supports detection of human trafficking crimes by investing in talent and technology that I mentioned before that study specifically financial flows and signals. More often than not, such exploitation can be detected from human migration patterns, including those fleeing from armed conflict or terror organizations' control over territory. So, for example, there are some clear red flags that could indicate human trafficking. Multiple victims with identical bank account details, such as phone numbers and addresses, victims accompanied to the bank by a third party, and behavioral activity which implies control over the victims, unusual transactions, rapid drawdowns of deposited funds or salaries paid, often in cash, and usage of funnel accounts. Now, the banks play a crucial role in preventing and stopping the underlying predicate crimes by identifying the perpetrators and victims through their money trails. And TD focuses to provide more financial literacy to newcomers and the marginalized community to make them aware of such activities.
Thanks for highlighting the role of identification to ensure people are appropriately banking, as is their right, versus identifying fraud patterns and fraud indicator flags that set off alarms. I really appreciate the complexity of the work that you, TD, and all the financial institutions and governments are doing to ensure Canadians have an inclusive and highly banked ecosystem while making sure you're detecting and stopping fraud using those strong existing foundations of our financial ecosystem and our financial regulatory framework. As we close our conversation, listeners would love to hear one piece of actionable advice from you about how they can get involved in the fight against human trafficking using the foundations of our financial ecosystem and regulatory framework and its capabilities. Could you share some advice?
Beyond the societal costs of such criminal activities, which is very important, it is our fiduciary duty and an economic imperative to prevent human trafficking and related criminal money movement. TD continues to invest in capabilities and resources to fight against crime, especially human trafficking.
Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts and insights with us today, Karan. I learned a lot through this conversation, even though I've been working with TD for many years now. I really appreciate the commitment and the passion that you and the TD team bring to the ecosystem. So thanks for joining us for this episode, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thanks, Joni, for including me.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Trust Talks and Digital Dives. Your support means the world to us. If you found today's conversation insightful, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Help us spread the word by sharing Trust Talks and Digital Dives in your networks. So until next time, keep exploring and keep delving into the world of digital trust.